How do you describe yourself as a leader?
I would say that I'm very much a leader who likes to paint a picture or create a vision of where we're going. I very much want people to feel included in my thoughts and the direction we're going. Um, that's something that I've always done, but certainly certainly being a CEO, I feel that it's important for people to understand where we're going and why we're going in that direction and really try to bring them along. And when I say that, I don't just mean to my, let's say my core team. I mean that through all the employees, through all the company. I do podcasts on a monthly basis, and I'm always trying to talk to them about, how we're doing as a company, or where we're going, and just always try to bring them along so that they can feel part of the journey, and hopefully that helps them in figuring out, well, why am I doing certain things. It just, for me, is important to make sure that I'm communicating with them all the time.
Now, did you plan your success? And what I mean by that is, did you have a solid plan that you followed? And sort of what did your leadership or journey look like?
It's a great question. When I was looking at the questions in advance, I was thinking about that. I would say that at a very sort of early age, I was very fortunate to be in a smaller company, but in a sort of an executive committee or a senior position level. And I wouldn't say that I had like a deep plan that said every 5 years is what it's going to be. I always took the view, when I was, again, in this early parts of my life and parts of my career, that I always really had a high test for myself in terms of value. I always, sort of looked at it and created I said, if I'm not adding value to the company, then basically then get rid of me. And that's number one. Number two, again, working for a credit union, I made a choice. I could go have worked for a bigger company, and it would have been, given ownership in the company, et cetera. But I worked for the credit union very early on. And the way the credit union model works, obviously, it's not my credit union. I'm part of the credit union, and the members are entrusting me with their money. So I always looked at it was, if this was, even though it was the credit union, I was basically an employee, I treated it as like my own business, and I made decisions that I thought were right. So as it related to the plan towards where I am today, I said, I think I got a good start. I had a good background, good education. I landed myself in a role, and I just kept adding value and always working hard, continued to add value. And I got recognized for the value that I was being created.
Now, with that, if I were to say, what do you feel is your one greatest strength?
I do feel that I know that I've got some really, I'll say, technical strengths in terms of my knowledge and my skills, and being able to really see what others can't see. Like, I've had people tell me that they can get they get the forest in the trees, and so they tell me that I'm able to really kind of see what they can't see, and make things clearer, make things easier, and paint an easy picture. Make things that seem so complicated, yet when I talk or I paint a picture, they would say that I have an ability to be able to simplify it. I never thought I would be a good communicator, but I do believe that I am a pretty decent communicator. So I think, yeah, part of my strength is just, and I guess just being me too. If I could say it that way, like I always say to all my colleagues, and I say to all the employees, I am the CEO, but I'm no different than anybody else. I'm first and foremost an employee of the credit union. I'm not any better than anybody. I'm not any smarter than anybody, but I do have a job to do. And, I'd like to think I do my job well, but I don't look at myself any differently. I don't have an ego. Like I said, I treat everybody with respect. And so can't really say that I could say it's just one thing. For me, it's probably a bunch of things as to who I am, that I think is allowed me to be in this position, and obviously to contribute the way I'm contributing.
Now, if you could go back 10 years in your career, Is there one attribute or skill that you find you have had to evolve the most compared to 10 years ago to now?
And I did say it earlier. I would say that I felt I was a weak communicator,
Mhm.
and I feel in this last couple of years that I've evolved in terms of my um, maybe confidence or style or approach. Probably the best way to say it. And I think in part is that I didn't have maybe a lot of experience or exposure to that. I did a lot of business cases and whatnot and presenting from things time from time, but this is different, right? Because I mean, I'm called upon to do a lot more communicating, and some of it, quite frankly, was me wanting to quote unquote get out of my comfort zone,
Mhm.
right? Both, if I go back to that 10-year time period, I would say there's actually two or three things. One was a realization that while I was really good in sort of the finance treasury side of things, I felt that I needed to get out of my comfort zone. And quite frankly, a couple of my bosses just kind of pushed and kicked me into that. And like I said, becoming the first CRO for the credit union and making it my own, and then handing it off to someone else, that was pretty pleasurable. So I think that, plus just in this case, from a communication standpoint, just becoming more comfortable in that people would say, you have a lot to say and you say it well and we listen. And so then I just said, okay. And then doing these podcasts and talking to employees, that's a form of where, again, I feel more comfortable, more natural doing that. And I would say that's been really important for people to really get behind what I'm doing and what I'm trying to do here for the credit union is, communication is important, and they say it is, and I think I've realized that I need to put myself more in that, get out of your comfort zone and take those risks and take that chances.
Now, what would you say motivates you the most through the challenges, through the things you care the most about? Like, what is your key motivation driver?
I love seeing people learn and develop, and I love helping people, coaching people. As I said earlier, I love building something and seeing successes come from what we're trying to do here. So I think it's a combination of, for me, I get really excited when I see people that work for me who are developing and they're growing, and when I see the company doing well, which we are, and I see that, and I stand back and I think about it, and I go, well, that's a culmination of everybody working together, collaborating, but they know why we're doing it, they know the direction we're going in. And that's the motivator for me, is just seeing how successful we can be, the people side of it, the company side of it, the culture that we're creating.
Now, if you were to sit back and look at what is that one thing that makes you the most proud in your leadership journey, what would that be?
I would say it again, it goes back to the past 2 years.
Mhm.
Whenever there is a leadership change at a senior level in an organization, it creates a lot of uncertainty and unknown. Both, we have a volunteer board and at the employee level and my colleagues.
Mhm.
That right now, I would say, looking back 2 years, and it is virtually almost 2 years, I am really proud of that, because I feel that our employees are feeling much more comfortable and competent, comfortable, I guess. They know how the company is doing. I communicate how we're doing. We're working together. We're creating great successes throughout COVID. The board's very happy. They're happy about how the credit union is unfolding. All the other key stakeholders around us are happy. So that to me makes me feel really good to know that I was a part of coming in and I'll say taking the reins, right? You have to take the reins. It has to be basically, someone who's doing that. But my management style is very much collaboration. I will work with people. I will try to collaborate and pull people in. I will work with our strategic plan with my colleagues and here's what I'm seeing, why I'm seeing it. So while I can sit here and say, me, I don't, it's the team that got us here. But it did take someone to come in and take the reins of this company and move it in the direction it needed to move it. And I did that very quickly. I created a plan, communicated the plan, continued to communicate the plan, and then it demonstrated through results, and then communicate those results, and then it just starts to snowball on each other. So for me, I am very proud of the transformation that we've had here in 2 years, and I think our journey over the course of the next few years, it's really exciting. We've got so many interesting things we're doing, and so I'm very excited about that. But that's really what has really been. That's the one thing I can say in the last couple of years.
Now, what would you say is the role of a leader in the future when it comes to diversity and inclusion and corporate social responsibility? Does the approach need to change from a leadership perspective?
What we always say that it's important for the credit union to look within its community and be supportive of everybody. And again, being given this role, and I've always felt that way, so being given this role to lead the organization in the way I want to see it to be led, I very much am passionate about the community and the inclusiveness of our community. That's what I love about Canada is basically, we are a melting pot of the entire world, but more importantly, I've been privileged in my life and others don't have that same privilege. So I want to ensure that the credit union is doing what it can to support our community. So long answer to your question, but yes, corporate social responsibility is deep within the DNA of the credit union. I'm living those kind of values. I constantly try to encourage my colleagues to do the same thing. We have a thing called Blue Wave. Blue Wave is an employee volunteer program. I'm part of Blue Wave. It's harder with COVID right now, but I'm encouraging more employees to become part of Blue Wave. And I'm trying to reinforce it through the podcast, through our portals, our internal portals, to communicate the things that I'm doing. We've done some really special projects where we just finished building a 127 unit apartment building, which is more geared towards those families that need a safe, secure, family-friendly environment to live, but they don't have the ability to afford luxury. And some of them have, they call it rent geared income. Some of them have housing allowances, but I'm very proud of the work we did there because, and I talk about it, quite frankly, I talk about it whenever I can because it's an example of what I believe corporations need to do.
Now, if you were to sum up your leadership credo, so your 3 to 5 key values that are important to you. I know you mentioned a lot around being true to yourself, making sure you always create the value and work above and beyond. Would those be your core, or would you describe them differently?
No, I think that's fair. So in the way that you describe a credo, I guess it's tying back into a leadership credo, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, I probably got about 5 or 6 there, as I said. Be respectful. I say be humble in the sense of just like I don't like to carry egos. I'm no different, no bigger than anybody else, or no better than anybody else. Listen and learn from everybody. Communication and like over communicate and involve people in the journey that you're taking. Well, I would also say too, being passionate. Sometimes I'm being very calm right now because sometimes when I get talking, I get really passionate about something, and that's just who I am. I'm very passionate and expressing and engaging in conversations. But yeah, I think again, like I said, I love the role that I play and the ability to be able to see the organization do well, see people develop, see that grow. I think those are all a mishmash of different leadership credos in there.
Now, if there's one book you would recommend to say, Sarah, you have to read this that will help you, create the foundation of how you need to think as a leader, would there be a recommendation?
Well, as I said, I'm probably when I saw that question, I laughed because, believe it or not, I'm not a big book reader. But I am reading a book right now that someone gave to me. It is called Leading Without Authority by Keith Ferenzi. And I've attended a couple of his online webinars and listening to his views. And so that would be the one right now that is timely that I think is a good read, where at least there's definitely some good concepts in there. And the reason I say that is because it's more of a newer thought process around how companies need to evolve. And a couple of the examples that were given, again, it's playing on things like Google and Facebook and how successful they've become and why. And they have these things where they will sometimes they'll celebrate failures, and they'll have spent lots of money, but again, out of a failure can come an opportunity or come a new learning that can be parlayed into the next big thing that can make that company billions and billions of dollars for its shareholders. And I think the other principle about it is, like I said earlier, it's about getting away from this notion of being so top-down driven, and that you can't develop thinkers and leaders within these other groups, these other teams, and you really want to, I think, evolve as a company to having people that truly can really think on their own and think about how they can make decisions that are going to be good for the company. And there might be a few things that don't go right, but basically it's a feeling that culturally that we're supporting them and what they're trying to do. And I think that's what we need.
And what if we had an opportunity to put you on the cover of a Time magazine? What would mean the most for you to see on that cover about yourself as a leader?
Well, I mean, I had two thoughts that came to mind when we're thinking about this. The one was one of the kind of goals or objectives I have for the credit union, and I think ties into one of your questions about retirement, but I really want to have the privilege of having employees rate First Ontario as a top employer, in whatever the definition that would entail. And if that was a Time magazine, I would be really proud to know that I was a leader of the credit union where the employees recognized us as a top employer. I would also think that the real hands-on contribution to our community and to the inclusive environment of whether it be housing or hunger or whatnot, but knowing that, again, using our platform here to create more housing for people in need, and people, the one project I talked about, like, we've already been picked up by CMHC, and I'd love to be able to tell our case story or case study on that, so that other developers around Canada can pick it up and do what we did. That would be really rewarding to know, if being recognized for some kind of community, making a difference in your community and being what I call a real hands-on contributor. Like, yes, we write checks, but anybody can write a check. And so my example of that, wanting to build 127 unit apartment buildings, I was like, oh boy. But I always said to people when I took that ride 4.5 years ago or so, or 4 years ago, is that I wanted to use my financial intellect and the power of the credit union behind me, the platform that I can use. I wanted to leverage all that to be able to make a difference. And I wanted to build housing stock that would give people a safe, secure, family-friendly environment to call home. I believe passionately that everybody, deserves that chance. and they don't always get that chance. So if through our efforts and my efforts, we were able to take that journey, that if I was on Time Magazine being recognized for that, that would make me really happy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like being CEO of the year,
Mm-hmm.
no way, that's not me.
And then my last question, as a leader, if I were to ask you, what is the one quote that you would define, that would be your legacy as a leader? What would that quote be?
Yeah, I mean, if I were to add to it, it'd be like, be respectful of all people.